Fox News reporter John Roberts, believe it or not, did a really superb job here holding Mike Pence's feet to the fire on the issue of healthcare costs for regular Americans. So the question's asked of Trump, but Trump kind of steps aside here and lets Pence take over, and then this happens.
There are a lot of people who are worried about getting sick, and do they end up in a hospital, people who are uninsured, and will they be crushed by medical bills? You were considering last month already in March, reopening the healthcare.gov exchanges. There has been a determination not to do that. Could you tell us what the rationale was behind that decision, and what would you have as an alternative?
Okay, they took that up under the task force, and maybe Mike, you want to say a few words about that?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And what I can tell you is that the President has made a priority from the outset of our task force work, make sure every American knows that they can have a coronavirus and they don't have to worry about the cost. And we were very inspired as well because of the President's engagement with the leading health insurance companies in the country, that now, so far, two of the top health insurance companies in America have announced that they're not only willing to waive copays on testing, and now testing is fully covered because of the bill the President signed for every American, but also that these two insurance companies have waived copays on all coronavirus treatment. And I can assure you that as Congress and the President and the administration begin to discuss the next piece of legislation, we're going to make sure that Americans have those costs compensated and covered. Our priority right now is ensuring that every American takes the 30 days to slow the spread to heart. The best thing we can do for one another, for our family's health, for the most vulnerable among us, is practice those mitigation strategies that the President outlined yesterday for the next 30 days. We're dealing with testing to make sure that every American can have a test that needs one. We're dealing with supplies, and we're making great progress in building personal protective equipment and ensuring that ventilators are available, particularly for the communities most impacted. But the American people can be confident that as we move into this, we're going to make sure that our healthcare workers are properly compensated for their extraordinary and courageous work. And we'll make sure that the financial burden on those who end up contracting the coronavirus and dealing with its most serious symptoms also can deal with those issues and deal with those costs.
Understood, Mr. Vice President, but there will be people who don't have insurance who get sick before any of these mitigation efforts are put into place. And without opening the healthcare exchanges, where can they find insurance? People who aren't insured by these companies that are covering the cost of the copay, where can people go now to get health insurance if they get sick, before they get sick?
Well, all across America, we have Medicaid for underprivileged Americans. And at the President's direction, the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services has given unprecedented waivers for states to expand coverage for coronavirus testing and treatment. We've also extended waivers for Medicare administration to make sure that people have access to that coverage. But we're going to continue to bring opportunities to the President. The traditional systems of Medicaid in particular for the uninsured in America.
Could you expand that to cover middle class people?
Well, I think what we're seeing health insurance companies do today, John, is really inspiring. I mean, one of the things that's characterized the President's approach here.
That's for people who already have insurance.
Well, one of the things that has animated and characterized the President's approach is the way he's engaged American businesses to step up and do their part. And as the President said many times, we're inspired by the spirit of American businesses. I was at a distribution center for Walmart today in Southern Virginia, and I saw the way this company that literally has already hired thousands of people, these workers are coming to work, the truck drivers are coming to work, farmers are working in the field. Grocery stores made a commitment to the President a month ago that no grocery store in America would close down. The food supply is strong. We're getting food on the table of every American. but it's because the president went to these leaders and said, we need you to step up and do your part. We engaged health insurance executives early on in this process to waive copays on coronavirus testing. And because of the engagement, and frankly, because of that patriotic and compassionate spirit that's being reflected, we've already seen two of the largest insurance companies in the country announce that they're going to be providing full coverage, free of charge, for coronavirus treatment. I fully expect, I think as the president does too, that we'll see more of that for people that have insurance. We'll continue to provide flexibility for Medicaid for people that don't have insurance. And we'll make sure that Medicare has the flexibility to meet this moment. For seniors, when we remember that seniors with underlying health conditions are the most vulnerable to serious outcomes from the coronavirus. But we'll get through this using the full weight of the federal government and the full strength of the American economy.
John, I think it's a very fair question, though, and it's something we're really going to look at because it doesn't seem fair. If you have it, you have a big advantage, and at a certain income level you do. I think it's one of the greatest answers I've ever heard because Mike was able to speak for 5 minutes and not even touch your question.
Damn. Trump basically called out Pence there and was like, bro, you didn't even answer that question. Wow. So, by the way, John Roberts goes on to ask another follow-up. And he still doesn't really get a direct answer from Trump either. Trump is like, yeah, we're looking at it. But the question is, well, hold on now. Basically, hey, shouldn't treatment be free? That's effectively what he's asking. Why? Who's going to get charged for treatment? Why are they getting charged for treatment? What's going on here? Now, notice Pence's answers, because Trump is right that Pence was super evasive. He goes, well, 2 insurance companies waived copays. So, in other words, that's them saying, see, kind of free a little bit, right? But then the response from John Roberts is, what about the uninsured? So, okay, you're saying 2 insurance companies waived copays. Okay. I mean, what about the other insurance companies? There's a lot more insurance companies. They didn't waive copays. But beyond that, what about the uninsured? They don't have any insurance, so there's nobody to waive their copays. Then what does Pence dodge to? He says, well, for those people, we have Medicaid. John Roberts stays on him. He does a really superb job here, guys. I'm amazed. This is a tougher question from Fox News than I heard from anybody from MSNBC or CNN. They like to do their, shallow grandstanding where they're not really asking anything serious, but they're trying to make themselves look like heroes. This is a serious question, and he's doing a great job with the follow-up questions. So he goes, Pence says, well, those people could just go to Medicaid. Roberts comes back and says, what about the uninsured who are middle class? Because Medicaid only applies to if you fall below a certain income threshold. So he's like, what about the middle class uninsured people? And that's when Pence effectively goes, let me tell you a long-winded story about me speaking to people who are stepping up like Walmart and whatnot. And it just dodges. Neo from the Matrix, dodging nonstop. So there wasn't an answer there. And then Trump has to jump in and say, basically, we're looking at it. So notice, Pence does the standard 1980s style, long-winded, smooth-talking politician dodge where he's just totally tap-dancing around the question. And Trump does the Trump version of a dodge, which is just, we're looking into it, we're going to look at it very strongly, which is still not an answer, but he's just trying to swat it aside real quick. But yeah, as, people were pointing out on Twitter, and they're correct to point this out, if they really wanted to fix this problem, guys, you know how you do it? Here's what you say. The Phase 4 Corona stimulus bill is going to include full treatment covered. That's it. Treatment will be completely covered, and that will be part of the new Corona stimulus bill. You don't have to worry about it. It is 100% going to be covered. All of it's going to be covered. We're working on it right now. That'll be in the next package. You can take that to the bank. That's how somebody who answers it who's serious. Like if Bernie was president and Bernie was up there answering this question, he would say, we're trying to put that in the new Corona stimulus bill. We're working on it. We're doing everything we can to get it in there. So relief is coming as long as we get it through. That's it. But they're not saying that. You want to know why? Because they're not really going to try to put that in the Corona stimulus bill. All they want to do is a lot of what they've done to this point, which is basically beg corporations to pretty please be nice to people. That's what they've done. In a lot of these press conferences, Trump brings up, and this guy's so tremendous, he's so wonderful. Let's bring up the head of Walgreens. This is the CEO of Walgreens, incredible person, I have to tell you. And he's bringing up all the private sector people, and he's like, all right, you guys talk about what you're doing. So it's like he's leaning on the private sector and just hoping that they're going to do the right thing. But what ends up happening in so many cases? Just like the Oval Office response that Trump did on this, he said, oh, treatment is going to be covered. And then the health insurance companies came out and said, we didn't say that. We said testing is going to be covered. And there's still loopholes to that. So it's not even like all testing is covered either. So it's nonsense. Pence is BSing there because Pence is not, by any stretch of the imagination, going to fight for treatment to be free. Pence is not going to fight for treatment to be free. Full stop. And Trump gets up there and says, we're looking at it very strongly, because I don't think he's going to fight for it either. So effectively, John Roberts' question was not answered there, because they won't give the answer of everybody's treatment is really going to be covered completely. And, you know, I will also say this about the irony of Fox News pestering them on that question. Hey, John, why haven't you asked this question before the pandemic? And why haven't you asked it when it comes to cancer, stroke, heart attack, breaking a limb, other viruses and diseases? Like, that same question you asked about this, oh my God, shouldn't this be covered? Like, yeah, all of it should be covered. All of it. Medical bills should not be something that can bankrupt you and ruin your life. But it's funny how everybody kind of sees the logic of it when it comes to the pandemic, but you go one step beyond the pandemic and it just falls apart in their mind, and they're like, I don't get it. No, people need to pay for that. Oh, God damn it. God damn it. And remember, this is at the same time that they just passed a bill, $4.5 trillion giveaway to corporate America, giant bailouts, and all these corporations, or many of them, are going to go bankrupt in 2 years again anyway, because the economy's ground to a halt. So it's so frustrating and so infuriating, but credit where credit is due. John Roberts did a great job asking that question there. And you see a lot of the difference between Trump and Pence. First of all, both of them they're not really going to do everything they can to help people here. That's obvious. But the second point is, Pence is the old school 1980s style BSer, and Trump is the modern era BSer, where Pence literally, like Trump said, talked for 5 minutes and didn't really answer the question. And then Trump gets in there and he's like, we're going to look at it very strongly, which also is not an answer to the question, but, you know, it's a more direct dodge, if you will.